Coming up on this edition of NHRA Today, a preview of eliminations at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Taking to the skies with a real dragster pilot. Chryslers congregate and compete in the Great Northwest, and Bob Frey gives his crystal ball another try. From Vandermeer Speedway in Denver, Colorado, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. From a purely aesthetic point of view, there is no event on the NHRA Winston calendar to match the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Set against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains, this race offers an eyeful of stunning scenery that accents the on-track competition. For the spectator, hillside seating turns the track into a virtual amphitheater, while for the competitor, success becomes an uphill battle against the power-sapping thin mountain air. For many, the price of failure is severe. But for a select few, victory earns the title of King of the Mountain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of NHRA Today. I'm Steve Evans. We're here at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals this morning to bring you a preview of eliminations to come today, beginning in about 2.5 hours. Plus, we'll have our usual array of feature stories, including a profile of Mike Burns, top alcohol racer and commercial airline pilot. We'll take you to a meeting of Mopar maniacs in Washington State. But first, let's find out who has made the most noise here on Thunder Mountain in the pro categories. Top Fuel, Bob Frey.
Scott Collette is currently the hottest driver in Top Fuel Eliminator. This team has reeled off 5 #1 qualifying shots in the last 6 races. And Scotty, along with a brand new baby, what could make life any better than this?
A win today. Fortunately, Dick's been doing a great job, and we just got to try and win one of these. He's been #1 for 5, and we just got to get some luck on race day.
I've been taking a look at the pairings with you guys qualifying in the #1 shot. You look like you're on a pretty good side of the ladder.
Yeah, if there is such a thing as a good side of ladder these days, yeah, the #2 and #3 guy got to meet each other in the final. So based on their performances, you know, the hitters, we wouldn't have to see them till the final if we make it that far.
Now they'd like to go a few rounds and parlay that #1 into a championship here this weekend. Now for the story in Funny Car, here's Dave McClellan.
Bob, the story in Funny Car basically centers around one man, Chuck Etchells. He established low elapsed time, the #1 qualifying spot, the only run in the 5:20s this entire weekend. You're going into eliminations today with a rather tricky racetrack.
Oh, that's for sure, Mac. I mean, you know, if it stays without clouds and in the 80s, you know, it really can be anybody's race. I mean, the General put a great lap together for us last night, and, you know, we have to see what it'll take out there today.
What do you think it's going to take to win this race?
My gut feeling tells me that it's probably going to take mid-30s to win the thing, somewhere along the line, and it's definitely, I think, going to take lane choice.
Maybe we'll see you in the winner's circle. Good luck.
I hope so. Thank you.
Let's go now to Steve Evans with the story in Pro Stock.
Well, I guess being in the Mopar tent this morning with this Dodge Daytona is a dead giveaway that Scott Jeffrey on his, the #1 qualifier in Pro Stock. And you thumped them. No one got within 1/10 of your 749.
Yeah, that sure felt good, Steve, I'll tell you. But the more important thing was that this Mopar Parts Dodge Daytona was consistent in all of its qualifying runs, and that's more of a confidence builder than anything else as far as going into race day.
You know, yesterday you said this might be the one car that benefits from the high altitude. It calms it down.
It sure does. You know, it being a little bit shorter wheelbase and a little narrower tracking width than most of my competitors, you know, we got a tremendous amount of power in this Dodge right now, and most of the time the motor wants to overpower the race car, as I'm sure you guys see at sea level. This car is like a snake going down through that racetrack.
Go get him.
Thank you very much, Steve.
U.S. air pilot Mike Burns has 2 passions, flying and drag racing.
First actual drag race was just a local track up in Erie, Pennsylvania, and it was with a 57 Chevrolet. Ran that for a couple years. Then I graduated to a Mid-America Funny Car circuit. I ran the Funny Car circuit for a couple years, and then I wanted something that I wouldn't hit my head on all the time while I was working on it. So I went to the dragster. I enjoy the dragster a lot more.
Fewer headaches meant success in NHRA's top alcohol dragster class.
2 years ago at Columbus was the best I've done at a national event. That was at the Spring Nationals, and we went to the semifinals. It's getting to be, we're just qualified these national events and stuff, so I felt really good about going to the semifinals.
As Burns' drag racing career began to take flight, so did his career as an airline pilot.
And we're airborne. wing landing gear up. I started flying, taking flying lessons in the evenings after school, and then it got to be, so I was so wrapped up in it, I had to quit the school for mechanics, and all I did was the flying. Charter work and flight instructing and flying mail and just anything I could do to fly.
Mike finds very few similarities between driving a 230-mile-per-hour top alcohol dragster and flying a commercial jetliner. Comparing the airplane in speed and gathering speed and acceleration, there's really no comparison with the airplane and the drag car. The drag car is so much faster, it's just, there's no real comparison. People don't realize how big the runways are. The drag strips, if you look at them from the air, the drag strip would look like a sidewalk compared to the runways. They're so big.
Kind of similar walking around an airplane as compared to a race car, like between rounds. As you're looking at an airplane, you're looking for leaks of any kind, which is important, and on race cars, you're always watching for leaks also. I know at the starting line, that's the big thing that all the starters are looking for, any kind of a leakage out of the car, and something you really got to be concerned about.
As with any pilot or drag racer, safety is the highest priority.
Twice a year we have to go to the simulator, and they'll give you all kinds of emergencies and stuff over there just to refresh your mind on stuff that doesn't normally happen every day, so you're up to date on what to do. Being able to simulate all the emergency stuff over there makes you definitely a better pilot. It will do a simulated crash, yeah.
But all the simulator time in the world couldn't keep Mike out of trouble during this run at the 1991 Gator Nationals when his rear wing fell off. The same thing that keeps his jetliner in the air keeps his top alcohol dragster on the ground.
I think there's a lot of performance in the wings right now. I think people are starting to catch on to that. And I think in the future you're going to see a lot of different type cars and a lot of different wings on cars.
Mike Burns is earning his wings both in the air and at NHRA events.
My goal someday is maybe run a top fuel car. I think that's a lot of people's goal. So if the alcohol car is as close as I come, at least I've accomplished that.
Well, that belief of Mike's on the future of racing aerodynamics has a growing group of followers. We've witnessed more and more the use of triple-tier wings on top fuel cars. And Frank Hawley, in this week's Fastback, he tells us about a new and somewhat radical school of thought on putting the wind to work.
Because of the amount of power made by the top fuel dragster engines, they need wings on them to increase the downforce so that the cars won't smoke the tires. Now, how a wing works is this. The bottom side of the wing is longer than the top side. The air that hits the front of the wing, therefore, has to travel a further distance underneath the wing than the air on the top. That means it has to speed up. As the air speeds up, the pressure drops, and that's how a wing works. Here's a little different design. This wing here has a series of holes drilled underneath that go to an air duct that come to the spill plate on the side of the wing and exit here. As the car goes down the racetrack, the air rushing past this outside portion of the wing creates a low-pressure system here. That, in turn, sucks the air out from the bottom side of the wing and further decreases the pressure underneath the wing, giving more downforce and supposedly no increase in drag. Does this system work? Well, the manufacturer says that this car should maybe go 10 miles an hour faster with this wing on it. But at this point, it's unproven.
Welcome back to Denver. In addition to the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals, beautiful Bandimere Speedway holds all kinds of drag racing events, such as the Kids of Courage program, which offers sick and disabled children a chance to experience drag racing, and the High School Racing program, which promotes safe, sanctioned competition for teenage racers. More than one NHRA race winner got their first taste of victory through that series. And there is one now professional racer who scored a stunning victory here at the Mile Highs 4 years ago in his first ever national event try.
1989 Mile High Nationals was probably one of my most memorable experiences as far as races. That was our first national event we ever went to with alcohol dragster, and a real experience because I'd never been to a national event. I was in awe as over how many cars were there, how many people were there, how many known names were there, and we were basically nobody. You know, Jay Payne was there, and Blaine Johnson, and you know, all the number 1, number 2, number 3 guys. So it was real fun to beat those guys, and then beating Blaine in the final. I mean, that was the best one for me. And I'll tell you, it was something we were excited for days after that one.
Take a stroll through the manufacturer's midway, and you'll always uncover some really neat automotive stuff, especially here in the Mopar display. This is it, folks, the Plymouth Prowler concept car that has the entire automotive world buzzing. They might just build this machine. So if it's what's new from Chrysler you like, this is the place. If you're into the classics, well, there are special events for you.
With summer in full swing, car shows are as common as sunburns in swimming pools. And the 13th annual Pacific Northwest Mopar Nationals, held in Spokane, Washington, was a hotbed for hot cars.
Well, the real appeal of the All Mopar event is where the Mopar enthusiasts can go out and see a lot of the cars that they're not going to see very often. There's usually over 100 cars at the drag event, well over 200 cars at the show, and you'll get a real cross-section of the cars that were built back during the muscle era and some of the later model stuff, that performance-oriented cars, and even the antiques, classics.
The 3-day event, which is always held the last weekend of June, gets jump-started with a Friday night cruise from the campus of Spokane Community College to State Line Speedway in State Line, Idaho.
That's given me a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of just really good times. We drive it everywhere we go and never trailer it. And to me, that's the best thing.
We enjoy driving it. It's a great cruising car. It's got plenty of power for keep up with today's traffic, and it's very smooth. So it's a great car just to travel long distances in. And it's very reliable, too.
Saturday's car show takes place at the Spokane Interstate Fairgrounds, and Mopar enthusiasts from 5 states and 2 Canadian provinces polish up their pride and joy and partake in the show and shine.
It's hard to explain, but it's just, you know, it's like a family. They really like you if you're in a Mopar, and you know, they're fun cars. They're really unusual cars. You know, Mopar is just, you know, famous for really oddball, high performance, big horsepower, bulletproof kind of cars. So, you know, there's a lot of history behind everyone's cars.
If this car looks familiar to you, you've been watching too much television. This 1969 Charger was originally built by Warner Brothers to be used in the Dukes of Hazzard TV show. But now,
it's used for quarter-mile demonstration runs. Just an excitement car is really what it is. But it's got almost a full interior. Looks almost like a street car until you look in the back seat, and then you're in for a big surprise.
And although the Millers traveled to Spokane from Alberta, Canada, their 73 Valiant made the excursion via the land down under.
It's car number 31 of 210 built with the 340. We've had it about 2 years, and this is the first time we've had it out anywhere since bringing it home.
In Sunday's bracket-style drag race, all comers squared off against each other.
It's probably a lot of us old guys back in the 60s that saw all these run back then, and it's good to see them run again.
It's a lot of fun. It's kind of neat to get out of town once in a while and come over here. I usually race at SIR and at Woodburn a lot, and Bremerton Raceway, and it's kind of neat to come over here and see some different cars and race at a different track. It's a lot of fun. I'll be back again next year.
The pits are at Vandermeer are absolutely jammed with sportsman racers. But of the hundreds here, only 7 will share the gold at the Winston Banquet in November. Now, in that this is the midpoint of the season, we thought we'd go to the poet of the pits, the burst maker of velocity, the bard of Vandermeer, Bob Frey, for his annual predictions.
The cards and letters are pouring in. Okay, so they're not exactly pouring in. Saying, Bob, when will you do that great prediction piece of yours, the one we expect from you? So wait no more, because here it is. Here are the champs this year. Here are the ones who will win it all when all the smoke does clear. TAD is always first, and this year there are 4, like Blaine Johnson and Jay Payne. Tom Conway and Chuck could score. But I'm not taking one of them like you thought I would. Nope, I'm going with Rick Santos and the little engine that could. The Field and Alki funny car is anything but pat, and Austin will be tough again, you know I'm sure of that. But watch for Bob, and Tony too, and keep an eye on Chucky's face. But this year I think I'll go with Manzo, the guy you know is ace. Let's look at Comp, where Stevie Johns is giving them a licking, and Todd is too. And don't forget David Nickens. While Vinny could win it all with just a little luck, don't look now, but I'll tell you, the champ will be Ed Chuck. Superstock features big wheel stands and the driving of Norman Hall, and Grant Lewis, too, could easily win it all. And while Doug Lambeck and all those Taylors will try to win once more, this year's king will be Biondo, and please, don't call him Salvatore. In Supercomp, now here's a guess, how about a Richardson? Ed, or Edmund, or even Scotty certainly could win. And Big Mike and Stevie Cohen probably will score, but I think I'll go out on a limb and pick that Jerry Gore. Supergas has millions of cars, including Bobby Brooks and Ben Raymond, and Big Bill Mullis will hit the record books. Now I like Sonny and Jaggy too, and I just wish I could pick them to win it, but I just can't. Congrats to Johnny Wood. Stock is fun, and so is Johnny. His nightmare could be rotten to guys like Rob and RC too, and even Michael Cotton. Watch the Emmons boys. I don't know which one is the better, as they all chase the eventual champ. How about Harold Culpepper?
What a delightful combination of culture and competition. Well, now that Ryman Robert has got us on a roll, let's rejoin my colleagues for a look into our Mile High Nationals crystal ball. Let's start with Bob and Top Fuel.
Thanks, Stephen. I guarantee you, no rhymes here, just the hard facts. Nobody said it was going to be easy on top of the mountain here at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Dan Olson, Ramsey McDaniel, and their crew working feverishly to get this car ready for round number one. They've done a lot of great things this year, everything except win one of these drag races, and I think today might be the day. They've got Joe Amato in round number one, and he's been the dominant car here the last couple of years. So watch for Ramsey McDaniel and Dan Olson to take Amato and the rest of the field out this weekend. Dave?
Bob, my pick to click in Funny Car is a man that came to this race with a brand new race car. In fact, the only 3 runs on this car came at the event here at Vandermeer Speedway. We're talking about the brand new Rug Doctor Oldsmobile driven by Jim Epler. He ran 5:49. That qualified him in the number 5 spot. And for this event, that's my pick to click in Funny Car. For Steve's outlook on Pro Stock, let's join him.
Well, guys, the first man to go to work in his Pro Stock car this morning here in Denver was Warren Johnson. He doesn't like being qualified number 2. The Dodge a full 10th ahead of him. But let's remember, in the final round last year, both cars were owned by Warren Johnson. He knows how to run in this thin air, just hasn't hit it yet. I like his chances today. He'll stay away from Jeffrey on to the final round if they get that far. Well, we're all out of time here.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.